More now on the Education Minister's guidelines for post-primary transfer. I'm joined by the SDLP leader, Mark Durkan, and Ulster Unionist. No, it's not the Ulster Unionist leader, indeed. It's, in fact, the DUP's Mervyn. Storey. You're both very welcome. We need to update our script there, but Mervyn, Storey, of course, you are now saying that the Education Minister has run up the white flag. The DUP feels vindicated, but this is no way to run the show here.
Well, this is an abysmal failure by an Education Minister who told us over the 18 months she was building consensus. And every time that we challenged the Education Minister on this issue to get a consensus, she told us, I'm talking to the stakeholders, I'm building consensus. Now today her consensus is in tatters. We have a simple situation which is now emerging. Academic selection is secure for those schools that wish to use it. We have the GBA, we have the Catholic Commission, we have the Catholic Heads Association who have made it abundantly clear to the Minister that they wouldn't accept anything less. And in fact, in recent correspondence, which I have asked the Minister now to release, those organisations had written to the Minister and had asked for the SIA paper to be put on the table. Today, the Minister now tells us discussions are over, the shutters are down, it's my way or no way, but she has failed to deliver because she can't remove academic selection.
Well, you say it's a huge failure for the Minister, isn't it? A failure for the entire system up here that all the parties have to take responsibility for. No voters voted for a system in which the schools, the primary school children, were going to be pushed into the political front line here.
But for a Minister, Mark, to consistently tell us that she was out there speaking to the stakeholders, that she had the ear of the people, that she was able to ensure that she was listening to what people were saying, she now has to admit that legally, what we as a party negotiated at St Andrews is legally the situation. She cannot abolish academic selection. Yes, I would have liked to have had a situation whereby instead of schools having to sit independent tests, there was a regulated system and there was a paper which was under the control of the department. When the Minister, and I listened to her earlier, she continually repeats this mantra that the DUP bloc. Remember, her proposals were rejected by the SDLP at the executive meeting in May when Margaret Ritchie proposed that there would be a subgroup set up of the executive, similar to what we've done in water, similar to what we've done in other cases, and let those proposals of the Minister and others be discussed. But of course, what did the Minister say in May? There will be my proposals and only my proposals. So it's the intransigence and it's the arrogance, I have to say, of this Minister that is so galling to the people of Northern Ireland. There are schools who wish to use academic criteria for admissions. This is the Minister who tells us she believes in equality. There is no equality in her proposal.
Well, Mark Durkan, I mean, what's the danger here of this whole issue infecting people's perceptions of this executive and this whole devolution project?
Well, I think it's a very real danger. I mean, we can all criticise what the Minister did and what the Minister didn't do and what she said or didn't say, but it's not good enough for us all just simply to hide behind criticisms of the Minister. I think we're looking at, effectively, a collective failure of the devolution project here. Because if we end up with a situation where we have, yes, guidance being issued by the Minister to secondary schools about their admission criteria, but that guidance is not binding, we effectively go into a situation where we have unregulated admission criteria going on in secondary schools. Is that a good outcome a year and a half into devolution? It's a very bad outcome because all sorts of confusion and contention is still going to be out there. Confusion and contention between people within schools, confusion for primary school teachers and principals about whether or when they're actually doing something that has an eye to tests that children may or may not be doing. So this could make the situation, even worse than what we've known.
Well, the Minister herself seems to think that the grammar schools, breakaway grammars, as she calls them, will back down. Although press reports suggest that the Catholic grammars will indeed join the revolt. Do you think schools will be coming under pressure from the Department of Education to toe the line?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what means of pressure can be applied. I mean, the guidance has been issued. How will the guidance be policed and monitored? Will there be implications as far as the enrolment numbers that schools are given if they're acting outside of guidance? Will schools be policed in terms of whether or not they're admitting the due number of pupils with free school meal entitlements or not? Will there be implications on funding or enrolment numbers there? And if not, then people will basically say that they are free to do their own thing, and that creates a situation where you have different schools doing different tests. That creates pressure for parents and children. It creates parents for primary school teachers as well. And it means that the situation that is supposed to be sorted for secondary schools that have found themselves under pressure in recent times isn't sorted at all.
A few moments ago when the Minister was talking to us, she was continually making the point, Mervyn, Storey, that as she saw it, a small number of grammar schools were, in essence, getting their will over the rest of the schools in the system. Has she got a point?
Well, I think that the Minister could probably have a lesson in numeracy. It seems as though she has some difficulty with mathematics. Now, to say that a minority of grammar schools is not the case, when you have over 60 schools who are now going to say, we are able, we are capable, and we, within the law, are able to set an independent entrance exam, then I think that that cannot be ignored. But the Minister, of course, knew this from day one. She knew what the legislative framework was. And I take the point that Mark makes in terms of we can criticise the Minister, but she is the Minister for Education. She has told us. Now, if she had taken seriously, this wasn't just a DUP issue. Remember, the Catholic Commission, and I don't think people would see me as being a cheerleader for the Catholic Commission, but this is a body that represents Roman Catholic grammar schools, have made it abundantly clear that they have serious concerns about the course of direction, not only of the Sinn Féin, but they would even question Mark's party in their attitude towards the preservation of grammar schools. But we can't ignore them.
But the Catholic sector initially did want to see the phasing out or the getting rid of selection, academic selection. And what's happened is there's been, if you forgive me for using it, almost a Darwinian battle going on where we now have survival of the fittest. The Catholic schools are perhaps only joining the revolt because they fear losing pupils to those non-denominational grammars which will set a test.
But I think that they have made it clear that what they wanted was they wanted a SIA paper. Today, I think there's another aspect of the Minister's announcement that people need to pay due regard to, and that is, she made it abundantly clear in the House today, discussion is over. And trying to give the impression somehow that she has done something which is a decisive decision. It is a failure on the part of the Minister for Education to deliver. And she talks about equality. She talks about providing for all the children of Northern Ireland. Remember this. When you look at, for example, in East Belfast, and she lectures me and my party about not representing working class unionism. I am proud to come from a working class background. I have a secondary school education and I'm proud of that. And I'll do everything to ensure that the standard and the resources are in our secondary schools, our non-grammar schools, to allow them to continue to deliver in the way that they have done. But a survey was recently carried out by the East Belfast Partnership in relation to the number of children from East Belfast who attended one of the local grammar schools. It was clear that over 60% of those children from the inner East Belfast area attended a grammar school. Now, this is the Minister who tells us that if you introduce selection, that in some way disadvantages working class unionists. It gives children the opportunity to aspire. It gives opportunity for children to have an academic ability school at their disposal. That's not to the detriment of any section, provided that you have a system that reflects the needs of all our sectors.
But she has produced a lot of statistics to show that the proportion, for instance, of children attending grammar schools who are entitled to free school meals is much lower than the proportion in secondary schools. Hasn't she got a point when she says that the unionist education policy, not just the DUP but also to some extent the Ulster Unionist education policy, is skewed, as it were, towards the higher income groups, and that you are failing those lower income groups who are going through the system, not getting through to the grammar schools and not getting any qualifications?
If I thought that our policy was to the detriment of working class unionism, I wouldn't support it. I believe in the educational merits of having a system that allows children to be selected on the basis of academic ability. I don't believe in a system that socially engineers them to be selected for school on the basis of what they eat and where they live. Because remember, the Minister told us 85% of children in the Malone Road go to a grammar school and 26% of children in poll class. Under her proposals, had she got her way, 100% of children in the Malone Road would go to a grammar school and no children from poll class would go. Where's the equality in that?
Mark Durkan, just finally, what do you say is the solution? Because this is a mess that the Executive surely needs to clear up.
Yes, well, it is a mess, and the mess will become more apparent as time and the years go on. So we need to have an Executive and an Assembly that is prepared to actually legislate on this issue, that is prepared to come to clear decisions so that people working in education and people looking to education for their family know that there is a clear solid framework. what we need to recognise is that academic selection at 11 is educationally unsound, it is socially unjust. Clearly there are ways of moving towards a system where people are making choices that they're in a better position to make at the age of 14. That works in other places, and we need to be planning and putting ourselves in that sort of direction, because parents and children are quite comfortable in making choices as between different types of subjects and courses at that age. It makes sense that we should make our school system fit the sort of choices that are natural and proper for people at the appropriate stage in their life.
Mark Durkan, Mervyn, Storey, thank you both very much indeed.